Tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about the beginning and the pre, that pre-low period that every successful person goes through.
Well, I need to go back to my childhood. I was born and raised in England, hence the strange accent you may be hearing on this call. My parents were together until my mother passed away a couple of years ago for 60 years. So I was raised in a very, very traditional family values in England. So stiff upper lip, repressed emotions, that's kind of the English archetype. And that's what I was raised with. And I didn't know that there was anything different about that. And I've got a lot of hindsight now to see what was off in my own learning. But when I was when I was growing up, two things were going on. One is that I didn't hear my parents ever argue in front of me and my brother. So the experience I had was a perfect relationship to my eyes. And so my memory taught me that every relationship should be perfect, which meant my teens and 20s were disastrous in my dating life because when I was going out on dates, I presumed it would be perfect and easy because it looked that easy. And so a month, 2 months ago, and everything was great. But as soon as there was a discord, an argument, an upset, I would bail. I'd leave because as far as I was aware of, this couldn't be the right one because we shouldn't be arguing. That's the rules I had in my head. And that's what I was being driven by. The other part was that I wasn't a jock or a player at school. So in my teens, I was the safe shoulder and the guy that the girls would go to when they were heartbroken because some guy screwed them up. They had an upset. They were hurt. And I was this safe space. I was that place they could come to rest, which was great in terms of I had all the women's attention, but I didn't get any benefits out of it. Just to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, I can so relate because it's man, this is where, as being an experienced host, sometimes your brain just kind of goes into left field. So, but I can so relate because it's that friend zone. I mean, in today, for what the kids would talk about today, is that friend zone. Is the fact that you end up entering this weird area where, and it sounds like during your beginning phases, you entered that area with a lot of people where you were just friends and they never saw you as as anything else. And
right.
it's kind of interesting. I mean, was that, I should say, during your teen years and when you were a kid, did you realize you were in the friend zone, or was that something that you were cognizant of, or was it just something that, hey, I'm happy to have all these friends and it's all good? What was your thought process at that point?
To be honest, I think more than anything else, it was naivety. I didn't know necessarily. Well, first of all, I didn't know how to do anything different. So the biggest thing was I felt like I was stuck there. Like I knew that there was more because I saw the guys and girls going out romantically, kissing, having fun. I was getting none of that. so I had this feeling of missing out on what was going on. Of course, looking back, I certainly see some of those patterns that they were doing that just crack me up now in hindsight. But for me, there was definitely the sense of not having what I wanted and not sure how to get out of the loop I was in.
Ah, interesting. And that I'm quite sure that in the second piece, when we actually talk about heartbreak and all the other, or I should say, Foggy Glasses, Iceberg, and Broken Mirror, and all the other stuff we're going to talk about in the second half.
Yeah.
It sounds like this would be a big part of it because I think a lot of people go through it, and a lot of people, when they're going through their beginning with their relationship with their teens, just as you said, they kind of realize it, but they don't know how to get there.
Right.
Interesting. So while you're going through this beginning phase and not realizing, or kind of realizing but not understanding how to get there, did you, was there anything you tried? I mean, was there anything that, before you hit the bottom, before you hit that turnaround piece, was there anything that you can remember trying to do or trying not to do to try and make things better or different? Or did you just kind of exist and just kind of deal with it?
The truth is that I was really more around my school fellow peers than I was anywhere else. So it was kind of like once I was in that routine and that rut, I was kind of stuck there till we left school. I mean, that was high school. And so until I went to college, things didn't really shift that much. And that was a place where things were different because it was a new paradigm. Suddenly I didn't have the history dragging behind me. I could start like, I'm new now, different and everything else. And I had a relationship that was really wonderful happen, but I was at a called technical school in England, which is one of these schools where you work out in the corporate world in between the years. You don't do 3 years straight through, which is English education, not American. So I fell in love with somebody the last week of my first year before I went home for the 6 months. So I ended up having to do a commuting relationship from home to college, back and forward, to meet this girl that I was going out with. And we went together for a few months, and it was a great new shift. But it was still had its, looking back, the crunchy bits and the bits that didn't really work. But it was fun at the time, but eventually just didn't work out. And I didn't know why it wasn't working out, but something was off. But the truth was, I had no skills, no mastery of this. I wasn't a player. I wasn't skilled. I wasn't anywhere near the level of understanding what human relationships are like anyway than I do now. Of course, hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of interesting that you say player because, it's funny. People, our viewer, we have very diverse viewership, a lot of Gen Xers and baby boomers and the millennials who are watching are probably going, I'm trying to think of if they'd be thinking what's a player or the kind of interesting, I guess the kind of interesting thing is when I think of a player, and I'm not sure if this is your definition at this point. Folks, this is the fun you get about seeing the multicultural aspect of Expert Showcase. We now finally have had an Englishman on. How many people from Spain and from, I've got to count the countries one of these days, but
right.
Gotta love Skype.
I know. We'll keep it on.
Yeah, we're going. But so when you say a player, when I think of a player, I think of a player that's been described, I'll say in the 80s, 90s, and I would say 90s and 2000s and today, which is somebody who just kind of goes around and has multiple women, that sort of thing. When you're saying a player, is that the definition you're using now from your beginning phase, or does it have a different meaning?
Truthfully, it was that kind of sense because as a young adult, that seemed like the only other choice. Like I didn't know how to do healthy relationships. I thought, well, they're having all the fun. They're getting together with the girls and having a great time. And I wasn't one of those. So they were the sort of the wished for ideal, which I could never get to because they were having success and they really didn't care. And it seemed like they were getting all the girls. Again, so I now know all the backstory. Again, hindsight being 20/20.
Yeah.
I was to see what wasn't happening for them. But at least they were getting to go on dates and having fun that I wasn't having.
Yeah, and it's amazing what happens with perception, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Where you can see on the outside things look one way. It's kind of like a duck. I mean, as you being in our industry, I'm sure you've heard probably used the old saying, a duck is all calm above water, but the only way it can be that calm is this little feet
underneath,
or spinning 1,000 miles an hour to stay afloat,
right. Absolutely.
So it's not necessarily what you see, but it's what you don't see.
Right.
And it's interesting because it sounds like you went through what I've experienced and what a lot of people I coach and a lot of my friends have gone through, which is that
to watch the rest of this epic episode now, click on the link below the video. Do it now, you'll be glad you did. Are you still here? What are you waiting for? Watch the rest of this epic episode now by clicking on the link below the video.